Hi there. Today I'd like to look at something said by the famous Cornell University astronomer Carl Sagan, one of the great popular intellectuals of his time. Um, he said that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And in a lot of ways, this is true. This keeps us from jumping down crazy rabbit holes based on a few suppositions, circumstances, or maybe the words of a demagogue or con man. It's also something that renders us maybe a little more careful about a lot of things beyond intellectual pursuits. I think that this is almost necessary for a criminal conviction beyond all reasonable doubt that really serious charges require really serious evidence, unless, of course, the defendant takes a plea bargain, in which case it's all moot. But I see it as sort of a trap for a lot of people, and maybe a trap of their own opportunity and their own satisfaction. And these are the people that see no evidence as being extraordinary enough. We've seen a lot of major changes in how we view the world, also as historians and the public see history. I think that plate tectonics was a theory that was originally laughed at, but became accepted based on evidence that wasn't quite so extraordinary, but it was compelling. Additionally, evolution fits this bill, unless you're a creationist or an advocate of intelligent design, in which case no evidence is going to be enough. The Big Bang Theory, that was originally a pejorative term for the currently accepted theory of the origin of the universe. And significantly, in my view at least, the man that really founded the Big Bang Theory, Georges Lemaitre, was a Belgian priest who could put matters of faith and matters of science in different compartments. And he was one of the most brilliant physicists and mathematicians of the 20th century. The most important guy that most people haven't heard of, at least in the United States. Um, he assembled compelling evidence. Whether it's extraordinary or not, I'll leave that up to you. I don't think it was particularly extraordinary so much as it was brilliant and perceptive and the product of a man's life's work. But as far as cosmology goes, we went from the idea of a steady state universe to one of perpetual, so far as we understand it, expansion. Thank you, Father, Dr. Professor Lemaitre, for that. We've also seen it in history. 1974, F.W. Winterbottom published his book, The Ultra Secret, and revealed that throughout World War II, basically starting 1940, the Allies progressively read more and more of the Germans' so-called secure communications through the efforts of the cryptographers at Bletchley Park. And this is something I dealt with in an earlier video on Occam's razor, that this complex theory was actually the true one, not the simple one. It was an exception to Occam's razor. But with the efforts of the cryptographers and the ultra secret, as it were, that the Allies were able to read more and more of the Germans' communications, which the Germans assumed, wrongly as it turned out, were perfectly secure. Now, this is 29 years after the end of World War II, and all World War II history had to be rewritten. This was a sea change in how we see history. So, this is extraordinary evidence that conclusively proved we were wrong. But I really believe, though, that Sagan's maxim can be an obstacle. It's true for the most part, but for people that do not keep their minds open, that don't even want to pay attention to any sort of evidence, it's counterproductive. That it's an excuse to keep things the way they are, to keep your perceptions the way they are. Let's think back to even like Nikola Tesla, as brilliant as he was. He never could accept the idea of relativity. He went to his grave in the 1940s still not accepting Einstein's theories. To him, there would be no evidence that was extraordinary enough that could overcome his views of a steady state, more Newtonian universe. And this is one of the things I think is really a bit in against Tesla, as much as I admire him. This was a mistake. Great men can make mistakes, and sometimes great mistakes. This is one of them. I think it has impeded our analysis of John F. Kennedy's assassination for a lot of people who believe that Lee Harvey Oswald did it alone. There's no evidence that anyone could muster that there was any other scenario. To them, it's just Oswald, always has been, always will be. Jack Ruby got upset because this was so hard on Jackie Kennedy, so we shot Oswald. Okay, I'll leave you to your fantasies. Personally, I think it was the mafia. And that's based on evidence that I've seen over the years, that they had a grudge. They had the means of doing it. Obviously, they're the mafia. They had opportunity, and they did it. And yeah, Jacob Rubinstein was a associate of the Chicago outfit before he went to Dallas. Isn't that an amazing coincidence? But there's still people out there that follow the official story in the face of extraordinary evidence. I think that following Occam's razor too, this is much simpler and therefore more probable, though not certain, but more probable than the idea of the magic bullet that went in multiple directions through Governor Connolly and into President Kennedy, and then magically appeared sitting next to him on the stretcher on the way to the hospital. Isn't that amazing? That when you look at it this way, the idea that it was multiple mafia hitmen firing from multiple directions makes a lot more sense. It's simpler. But there's still people that will even explicitly cite Sagan's principle to assert that there was a single shooter named Lee Harvey Oswald up in the book depository who went running out. The only certainty I see there is that Oswald killed Officer Tippett. That's it. As far as killing Kennedy goes, I think we've seen the evidence, and as Woody Allen put it, the one nonfiction book he wanted to read was a nonfiction version of the Warren Report. So this is my lesson of the day. When you see evidence, don't ignore it. Even if it's an extraordinary claim, examine the evidence without this element of partiality that it's got to be so totally extraordinary that it's going to be overwhelming. That you don't need to have your road to Damascus moment. I'm thinking of St. Paul getting knocked off of his horse by a bolt of lightning and then he decides that, well, maybe this is evidence enough I've been doing the wrong thing. You don't need that. You don't need that sort of divine intervention, even if it exists. Just pay attention to the evidence, such as it is. Pay attention to the opposite side, such as it is, and come to a rational conclusion without falling into this comfort zone of, well, it's not extraordinary enough. Bring me more. No, you don't want to do that. I don't want you to do that. I don't want me to do that. So, consider that when examining evidence for anything, whether it's cosmology, whether it's an unknown phenomenon, whether it's something from history. Don't go following every crazy conspiracy. Most of them are just complete BS. But look at evidence and assess the source, assess all the sources, look at their credibility, look at where they come from, and whether they're believable or not. Use your critical thinking skills. Don't rely on authority to say that's not enough. Don't rely on authority to come up with a BS excuse for you not to believe. Keep on thinking to J. Allen Hynek's explanation of a UFO flap in Michigan. He said it was swamp gas. That's an insult of evidence that isn't even close to ordinary. It's just an excuse. Don't do that. And just as Tesla had his issues, I think, with relativity, I think Hynek had his with following the Air Force narrative, the narrative of his employers, and assigning swamp gas as an explanation for anything. So, maintain your critical thinking skills, look at evidence, but don't fall into that trap. And then don't keep on saying, well, this is what Sagan said. Don't use that appeal to authority to justify your own incuriosity or inflexibility. I think that it's just something that you have to remain flexible on without being so open-minded you turn into an idiot. You can entertain an idea without accepting it. At the same time, accept all you want when it's important and when the evidence is there. So with that, I'll leave you, and thank you for your time. And of course, please like and share and subscribe. I look forward to seeing you again. Thank you very much.